going up. We going crazy. Going bonkers. Produced by Ziggy. Zay Ticky. Believe that.
It ain't peaches, it'll deceive you, boy, believe me. What you know about a jungle made with nothing but semen. No creepy crawlers, just heathens that prey on your weakness. Smell the slightest hint of fear, understand that you'll eat it. Gang bangers that greet your test on their face like Weezy. Pouring milk by the ounce, walking around looking sleepy. I'm from a town, no integrity, a broken city, disrupted. I know niggas who once were real, who now turning into suckers. When it comes to murder, it's nothing. Rallos get pulled over scuffles. Bumpy road around this motherfucker, your life means nothing. It ain't peaches. Niggas walking around with no feelings, with a chip on their shoulder, saying the world don't feel us. Trying to earn them some millions so they can split with they niggas. I know cats that died broke because they lost all ambition. When it comes out to get.
Welcome back, my subscribers, all my viewers. Thank you so much in advance. We're back with another edition of Queens of the City. We're up to volume 10 now. I have a very special guest with me tonight. I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you what she does, and we'll go from there. How you doing, ma'am?
Thank you so much. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing all right.
Okay. My name is Jacinta Jones. I'm an attorney with Rodman, Holscher, Peck, Edwards, and Hill, which is a law firm located in Washington, North Carolina. I am a family and civil law attorney in Washington.
Okay, all right. Well, before we get into the difference between family and civil cases, can you kind of tell me and my viewers, the motivation behind you wanting to choose this career? Is this something you thought of growing up, or something you just kind of fell into, or?
Yes, I did. I spent most of my time as a child wanting to either be a judge or being a doctor. What I realized is that I liked working with kids, and I wanted to have a job that impacted children's lives. And I ultimately decided on the law because I felt that by practicing law, I could affect the lives of more children on a more regular basis than I could as a doctor.
Okay, that makes perfect sense to me. And once again, thank you for what you do. I definitely think it's making a positive impact in the community, near and far. So as far as your profession, would you consider your field to be a male dominated field? And was it harder for you as a female?
Generally, the law is a lot more male dominated. In the last few years, it has evened out a little bit. But specifically being a Black female attorney, we generally make up between 2 and 4% of the population of all lawyers. So I think that more of the change comes in when you add the race on top of the gender. But even in my judicial district, which covers 5 counties, there are about 60 attorneys. I am one of 2 Black female attorneys and probably one of about 15 female attorneys in general. The difference mainly, however, is because I practice family law of the areas of law. Family law is one of the areas that you see more women in than you see other areas, such as criminal or contract or corporate law.
Okay, and if you can, could you kind of tell us the difference between those?
Sure. So basically, the way we were taught in law school is, if you can think of any type of job in the world, any type of subject, there's an area of law that covers it. The main ones that you hear about most, of course, are criminal law, which are going to be either your prosecutors or the parties defending your criminal defendants. Family law normally deals with things like divorce, child custody, spousal support, and property distribution. Civil law is pretty much anything else that is not criminal. So family law is considered a type of civil law. So civil law is broken down into hundreds of different areas. But even as a family law attorney, I also represent parents or the Department of Social Services in cases where children go into foster care as well. So there's pretty much an area of law for anything in the world.
Okay, that's well put, ma'am. And thank you for explaining the difference, between those different levels. So as far as, family law, which you practice, with everything that brings, is there a level of stress that comes with that? And how do you prevent that? If there is that level of stress that comes with it, how do you prevent from, carrying that over into the court?
Um, I would have to say, as a general rule, I do think family law is a more stressful area of law than some others. We normally think of corporate law, where people are representing a company, as being kind of one of the least stressful areas. Family law tends to be stressful because most of the time people are fighting about things that are very emotional to them. And sometimes those emotions carry over. And also, because it is emotional, I think family lawyers often tend to take on the burdens of their client. If you're representing a dad who's coming in crying and saying, I just want to see my son, I just want to see my daughter, mom won't let me see her, you can't help but kind of internalize that, because you can feel like you may be one of the few things that can either help him or hurt him if you don't handle that case well. As attorneys, unfortunately, we are within the top 5 professions in the country when it comes to levels of suicide as well as substance abuse, because of just the general high stress level of the legal field. So they actually spend a lot of time within our bars talking to us about stress management, handling burnout, and seeking help if we feel like we are kind of overcome with emotions of stress. So they do try to monitor that a little bit, but it's kind of just trying to keep a balance between life and having things that you enjoy, spending time with friends and family.
Okay, and thank you, ma'am, for answering that question in details. Because as I sit here and have this conversation with you, I was just thinking, me personally, I never, experienced anything, in family court or anything like that. But just thinking of, other people, whether I know them or not, but that is, a stressful and delicate situation. Because like you said, these things that people are, having this dispute for is, real emotional. So, and I know for you to do your job, and, any other lawyer in this position that, represent somebody in family court, to fully understand what your client needs from you and is going through, you really got to put yourself there, and that could, overwhelm you in that situation. And, yeah, I think it's good, like you mentioned, that, that they do offer, your firm, and I'm pretty sure all other firms that they offer and actually, check on your well-being, your mental state. I think that's very important. I'm glad that you mentioned that. That really is stressful, going through that and putting yourself there. So thank you for that, ma'am. Thank you for that. Could you, if you could, I don't necessarily want you to give an example of one of your personal civil cases that you had, that you dealt with, but could you give an example of one, so my viewers give a clear understanding?
Sure. Do you mind if I give 2?
Please do. Thank you.
To kind of give the difference between, say, a family law case and a DSS case.
All right.
So normally in a regular family law case, what we consider a private custody case, for example, is normally mom versus dad about what they're going to do about custody of the children. However, sometimes it's not necessarily that the parents aren't getting along. They just want paperwork, right? Okay. So sometimes parents will file what we call a friendly lawsuit, which means, hey, you're going to get this paperwork in the mail, but it's just because this is the only way to get it into court. I'm not really upset. We just want to have paperwork that says, this is when you have the kids, this is when I have the kids, we're all cool. Right. One good thing about North Carolina is generally when parties file a custody complaint, they have to go to mediation before they can have a trial. And that's to see if they can come to an agreement amongst themselves with the mediator without having to go back and forth in court. So what I like to tell my clients a lot of time is, you know, you can fuss and you can fight and you can say all these horrible things about the other parent, but as your lawyer, when your court case is over, I'm going to walk away and I'm not going to be affected by your case, but you have to still deal with this other person for the rest of your life because you have children together. So everything doesn't need to be a fight because y'all still have to be able to compromise for the next 18, 20, 30, 50 years of your life. However, in a DSS case, that's normally because social services has stepped in. So it could be that one or both of the parents has a drug program, a drug problem, excuse me. The parents could be involved in domestic violence, or one of the children could have been physically abused. And in those instances, the Department of Social Services is coming in and saying these children don't need to be with the parent, or they're coming in and saying the children can stay at home, but the parents need to work on these things to make sure they keep custody of their children, or to determine if it would be better for these children to live with someone else.
Okay, all right. I definitely appreciate your detailed answers, ma'am. I definitely think my viewers and as well as myself definitely learn a lot right now. I do have a few more questions,
Sure.
just more legal questions, more of advice. And first off, I want to know, did you ever think of getting into you explained the differences, but as far as like the criminal side of things, like being a defense, representing a defendant in a criminal case, was that something that you thought about, or is something that you didn't already knew that you didn't want to be a part of?
Yeah, so when I went to law school, I knew of all the things that I did not want to do. I did not want to do criminal law. And I think it is because of stereotypes that we think of when we think of lawyers. And when it came to criminal defense specifically, I didn't want to be the person who was getting criminals off on a technicality, right?
Right.
But then when I went to law school and I actually started learning about criminal law and criminal procedure, it did change my mindset about that. And what I really began to learn is it's not that criminal defense attorneys are trying to keep criminals out of jail who are guilty. They're just saying that the state has to do their job and do the right thing to prove their case. So if my client is guilty, prove it. And prove it the right way. It's not necessarily about treat them all like they're innocent. So that was interesting. I just still always wanted to be more in the family law realm. So I've been involved in a few criminal cases, but I've really tried to stick to family and civil. And I did intern with a prosecutor's office while I was in law school as well, which was interesting.
Okay, definitely. You got to see, both sides of the table, literally. So, yeah, definitely. I think that was a pretty good experience.
Yeah,
being able to see it from both sides. So, another question I have for you, ma'am. If there's any younger viewer that may be listening, that had the same dream that you have, any advice would you give them? And before that, actually, could you explain the process, from high school to college and, so on to how you got where you are?
Sure. So the main thing in high school is there's nothing really to study to get you ready to go to law school. You really just have to be able to do well in school, make good grades so that you can get into college and do well. Once you get to college, your major does not matter at all. I was a sociology and African American studies major. I went to school with people who studied dance, art, cancer biology, exercise and sports science, anything. The main thing in college is also to make sure that your grades are good. Then you have to take the LSAT, which is a standardized test for law school admissions. If you do well on that, you're admitted to law school after you get your bachelor's degree. You can also get a master's and go later. However, once you get to law school, most law school programs are 3 years. Sometimes people will do a joint program, like a joint law degree and a social work degree or an MBA. That can normally make it a 4-year program. The big thing about law is after your 3 years in school, you have to take and pass the bar exam to be a practicing attorney. When I took the bar exam 10 years ago, it was a 2-day exam, 6 hours a day. So there was 12 essay questions on the first day and 200 multiple choice questions on the second day. In the last few years, the test has changed and there is a more generic exam for each state, because every state has their own bar exam that you have to pass. So the bar exam is a little different. I haven't had to take it, but it normally still takes about 2 days, about 6 hours per day. And then from there, you can go into whatever area of law you would like to go into.
Okay, not to cut you off, but I think you just touched on something that I didn't know. I didn't know that, you know, you have to, if you move to another state. So basically, if you move to another state, you'll have to pass the bar all over again. Or you
Yes,
can only
now,
practice law here.
now they have moved to something called the UBE, which is more of a universal bar exam.
Okay.
So the multiple choice portions of the bar exam are the same pretty much for every state. The essays are normally what is specific to the state.
Okay.
So like if I were to go to Virginia, I would have to take their bar exam. However, because I've been practicing more than 5 years, I could waive into Virginia's bar. So if your state has what we call reciprocity with the other state, then you may not have to take the exam if you've been practicing long enough and you're in good standing with your own state bar.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am, for explaining that. I just want to, once again, thank you for helping me put this together. Like I said, what you do, I think is very important and very honorable. And I want to, bring attention to that, kind of shine a spotlight on you and what you do. And I think you're definitely an inspiration to the younger generation all across the world, but definitely from our hometown, our certain side area of Pitt County. I definitely think you're an inspiration to everybody from there. And I just want you to know that that I'm definitely rooting for you, and it's an honor and privilege to have you do this for me. And I think we're going to wrap it up right here. You definitely answered some great questions, and you explained some things that I didn't know, and I'm pretty sure my viewers learned something. So yes, once again, thank you, ma'am, for helping me put this together. This has been another edition of More to Live For, Queens of the City, Volume 10. And it's been a pleasure reconnecting with a high school friend, Miss Jacinta Jones, and learning everything that she does. And yes, it's definitely been a pleasure. Thank you once again, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for doing this. You have to have a really great kind of vision to want to highlight people in your own community. Yes, and the type of foresight that you have for that is just amazing. And I really appreciate what you are doing for the community as well through this highlight.
Oh yes, so, ma'am. I ain't doing too much. I'm just trying to find my mark. But definitely this is what I think is important, what I'm doing. Because I could be doing any other thing as far as like with what I'm trying to do with YouTube. But I really think the way to go is highlighting these wonderful people around me that I grew up with. And it's been a wonderful journey making these videos, these Zoom interviews, the few that I did in person, because it wasn't intentional for me to, for 90% of my guests to be, from North Pitt or from Belton School, but that's kind of just the way it went. I mean, I do know other people, like we all do, but just the people that came to mind first when I thought about, what it is, the image that I'm trying to portray, and and the people that came to my mind were people that I grew up with, people that I went to high school with, stuff like that. So once again, thank you for being a part of this. Definitely.
No problem.
And we're gonna wrap things up. And
All right.
and once again, thank you, ma'am. And you have a great night, ma'am.
You too.
All right.